On Wednesday, in response to criticism that Donald Trump and the fat ass Donald Trump and other administration officials violated federal law by using government resources at the Republican National Convention, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows declared nobody outside of the Beltway really cares. They expect that the fat ass Donald Trump is going to promote Republican values, which he did not. If Meadows is referring to those Americans outside the Beltway who hate the fat ass Donald Trump, he's wrong. Anti fat ass the anti Trump voters may have never heard of the Hatch Act, which I actually have, but they care about Trump's assault on the but they care about the fat ass Trump's assault on the rule of law. During the Ukrainian scandal earlier this year, a plurality of all Americans and more than 80% of the Democrats told pollsters that Trump should be impeached, which he was. But Meadows does have a point, a deeply disturbing one about the inbred supporters of the fake president. For the most part, they don't care about Trump's brazen legal transgressions during the Republican convention or at any point in his fake presidency. This isn't because they don't care about corruption, because actually they don't care. Yeah, it's because of the way they define the term, less as the violation of America's laws than as the violation of America's traditional hierarchies. Thus, so long as Trump promotes Republican values, he can't be corrupt. Which, well, either way, even if he does promote their values, he's still fucking corrupt either way. Um, as I have as I have previously stated, and anybody else has noted, the word corruption cannot connote different things. It's used to describe the betrayal of public trust for private gain, which describes Trump, but at a but etymologically, it's also linked to contamination, debasement, and impurity. And throughout American history, Americans have often labeled as corrupt people who undermine not the rule of law but the pre-existing racial or gender order. In public discourse for much of the 20th century, the Reconstruction era, in which black Southerners gained some political representation, was synonymous with corruption. In fact, as Ta-Nehisi Coates has pointed out, the Jim Crow era that followed Reconstruction constituted the real kleptocracy, but black citizens were robbed of their political rights, their economic freedom, their possessions, and their land. But many white Americans associated the Reconstruction with corruption because it had corrupted the white dominance that they had considered essential to the legitimate government. After black people in the South won the right to vote again in the 1960s, their political participation was deemed corrupt yet again. In his book Rumor, Repression, and Racial Politics, the University of Maryland historian George Derek Musgrove notes that at one point in the 1980s, the Department of Justice investigated black politicians at 5 times the rate it investigated the whites. He cites a study in which the Iowa State sociologist Mary Sawyer concluded that allegations of corruption against black officials were pursued on the basis of less evidence, and news stories about alleged corruption were printed with less solid information. The reason, she argued, was that some white people are personally affronted and threatened by the prospects of blacks having power over their lives. The black power constituted corruption in and of itself. That racialized definition of corruption remains very much alive today, considering the presidency of Barack Obama. Obama supporters look back on his presidency as admirably scandal-free, but too many Republicans, um, Obama personified corruption. After all, the majority of Republicans, as 2017, told pollsters they believed that Obama had been born outside the United States. Now, if that was the case, he would not have been allowed to be president. Which means that simply by assuming the presidency, he was violating the Constitution. No wonder Trump, who used birtherism to launch his national political career, has fumed about a fictitious Obamagate and called the Obama administration the most corrupt in history, which it wasn't. The accusation of corruption was also central to Trump's 2016 to the fat ass Trump's 2016 campaign against what he termed crooked Hillary, and it proved highly effective. The most common reason Americans gave for disliking Hillary, according to a June 2016 Morning Consult poll, was that she was not trustworthy. Well, neither is the fat ass 45. The second most common reason was that she was corrupt. Same thing with the fat ass 45. In fact, according to PolitiFact, which evaluates the veracity of politicians' statements, Hillary Clinton's are almost 4 times as likely to be rated true or mostly true compared to what to the bullshit that Fat Ass 45 spews. But like Obama, Clinton was seeking a job previously held by white men only, and thus threatened one of Americans' most sacred hierarchies. As the Yale researchers Victoria Breskel and Tyler Akamoto found in the 2010 study, female politicians are characterized as power-seeking, often evoke feelings of moral outrage, i.e., contempt, anger, and are disgust. In other words, many Americans view Clinton's bid for power as inherently corrupt. In his book, How Fascism Works, the Yale philosopher Jason Stanley argues corruption to the fascist politician is really about the corruption of purity rather than the rule of the law. Officially, the politicians' denunciations of corruption sound like a denunciation of political corruption, but such talk is intended to evoke corruption in the sense of the usurpation of the traditional order. To use Meadows' language, if you're defending Republican values, you can't actually be corrupt even if you're using federal employees and properties for political purposes. Even if many of your aides and close associates have been convicted of crimes, even if taxpayers have paid your business $900,000 during your failed presidency. In 2016, when Trump faced a woman running to succeed a black president, his fascistic conception of corruption helped him win the election. Technically, he didn't really win, but so far it has proved less effective against Joe Biden. It has proved less effective because, by the standards of Trump and many of his supporters, Biden is technically less corrupt just by being a white man. His presidency would constitute less of a usurpation of the traditional order. No wonder the word corrupt Joe has not caught on yet with anybody. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.